Oh, this is gonna be crazy. That was great. Okay, hello everyone, and welcome today to another episode of SpraynPray1000's Verdict. I am SpraynPray1000, and actually to this, this episode, I'm not actually on my desk. I'm actually on my bed for various reasons. But regardless, the verdict will still stay the same. The verdict will not change. And today I'm going to talk about one of the most interesting games I've played not only all year, but probably on my YouTube channel ever. Hyrule Warriors, the new mashup between the Legend of Zelda franchise from Nintendo and Koei Tecmo's Dynasty Warriors. And just playing this game, just without a doubt, it's had to be not one of my best playthroughs per se, but definitely one of the games I've had the most fun on just overall in the history of my channel. So Hyrule Warriors is, as I said, a combination of the gameplay elements and aspects from Dynasty Warriors, and just basically the story and characters from The Legend of Zelda. So it's not like there's some characters from Dynasty Warriors in here. No, there aren't. It's all Zelda. It's all in the Zelda universe. All Zelda characters from across all the different Zelda games, and that's really cool in my opinion. So right off the bat, the initial impression to me, whether this could be either a very good mashup, where you have two different franchises coming together, very interesting, or it could be very poor if it was done improperly or incorrectly. Well, let me tell you right off the bat that without a doubt, this has to be one of my favorite games I've played on my channel. So it's definitely good in that regard. So Hyrule Warriors has 4 different game modes from which to play. There's the basic story mode, this game does have a little bit of a campaign. There is the free play mode, which lets you replay any mission in story mode with any warrior, hero or villain. There's the adventure mode, which is kind of like... See, adventure mode's weird because it's not the same as challenge mode, which is obviously, challenges that you do, various little challenges. Adventure mode is different because it's kind of like... I want to say like a board game, like a classical Zelda game where, you have different squares on a map and you have to complete each mission on the map, and some of these missions are your normal scale battles, some of these missions are little quick battles, some of them are quizzes about your knowledge of the various games, and all that kind of stuff. So the gameplay of Hyrule Warriors is pretty simple, but at the same time it can get pretty complex. You pick whatever hero or warrior you want to play as, and unless you're playing in story mode, in which case you might be limited to a certain character, typically Link or someone along those lines. And you pick your character. They have their basic strong attack, they have light attacks, and you can combo their light attacks into strong attack finishers. Each character has a special move that you activate with the A button. That's typically like a group clearing kind of move. They also have something called Focus Spirit, which is like their final ability, where they charge up, they do extra damage, they move faster, and then at the end of it, they can do one of 2 moves, depending on if you let it run out normally or if you pressed a button to end it early. They also have dodging, lock-on, guarding, the standard stuff you kind of would expect from almost a Zelda game, but obviously with a way more heavy action-oriented tone to it. In this game, rather than fight, a couple enemies here or there, you typically a full-scale mission involves you killing upwards of 1,000 to 2,000 enemies, and running quickly between them. Now, of course, each small, meaningless minion takes about 1 or 2 swipes to kill, unless you're playing on hero mode or the hardest difficulty. And, they're not really that hard to kill or dispatch, but a lot of the higher-up enemies require a lot more dodging, a lot more movement, and a lot more guard breaking, etc., to try and really get behind them and get under them. Also, each opposing enemy that you face, when they do a special move, whether they be another playable warrior that's just on the opposite team as you, or whether they be like a special monster from Zelda lore, That's right, because all the monsters in this game have appeared in some form in Zelda games at some point, which is really cool about this game. But each time they use a special move, they display something called a weak point gauge, which you can then exploit by attacking them while it's displayed. And if you manage to deplete it, then you can combo them and you can get a couple extra moves, and you can also hit other enemies while you're doing it. So it's not just like it's only for one enemy. Like if there's a group of enemies and you hit the weak point on one of them, you'll do damage to all of them and you'll knock them all back. And what's really cool about the fact that all these monsters are completely based off of previous Zelda incarnations is that they all basically have the same weak points as previous monsters. Now, a couple monsters have had their attributes changed to orient them more to the diversifying the gameplay, like the Deku Babas, which in typical Zelda games, you just run up and hit them with your sword, or you use the boomerang. You use the bow on them, but really, it's not that big of a deal. It's just more that not everything plays exactly by the Zelda rulebook that you might be familiar with. But for the most part, like for example, King Dodongo, you defeat by throwing bombs in his mouth. Argarok, you defeat by claw-shotting it. And it's what's really cool about this game, this kind of segues into my next point, is that this game has major throwbacks to 3 games in particular, but Zelda games of all kinds. It has throwbacks to Ocarina of Time, Twilight Princess, and Skyward Sword. 3 major 3D Zelda games that came out, that have come out in like the past 15 or so years. And what's really cool is that while channeling these 3 games, this game actually manages to maintain a strong identity of its own, in my opinion. Now, rather than just be a complete monstrous mashup of these 3 games, Hyrule Warriors does a pretty good job of balancing all these games pretty well, in my opinion. And you'll see, as I said, you'll see a lot of enemies and a lot of characters that you're familiar with. There's going to be, for example, you have Link, you have Zelda, you have Sheik, Impa, a couple new characters thrown in there, completely new original designs. And they're all playable, which is really cool. And in fact, they just had a patch yesterday to add some more villains in that weren't playable, and now they are, which is really awesome. That was for free, in addition to some of the paid-for DLC. And I really, really like this fact that they have all this stuff thrown in there. I've already talked for maybe about 3 minutes just about the fact that I like how it's such a homage to the Zelda universe. Now, this gives way to one of my initial one of my initial complaints about this game, is that it does a great job of channeling those 3 games, but it pretty much does a very good job of ignoring a good chunk of the remaining games. So, for example, the Wind Waker game, the Wind Waker presence in this game is almost null and void. There is almost no Wind Waker, and while I guess I don't know why, really, maybe because Wind Waker already has an HD game on the Wii U, so they kind of didn't want to push it too much. Wind Waker is pretty much non-existent. And now that might disappoint some people. Now, there are some items in there, like one of the characters can use the Deku Leaf from Wind Waker in one of her attacks, to soar through the sky and whatnot. So it's there, you know what I mean? But it's not as prominent as some of these other games, which have, actual playable characters from Ocarina and whatnot. It might be because Wind Waker has a different art style. I don't know. But for example, Wind Waker is not really present. Minish Cap, the Oracle series, like there's a whole bunch. A Link Between Worlds and a Link to the Past are not there. Majora's Mask is in there. I mean, I guess it kind of is basically Ocarina, so that would kind of explain that. There's some things from Ocarina and Majora. Well, there's some things from Majora's Mask that are in there. So I mean, as a Zelda fan, I kind of nitpick some things like that. That my favorite Zelda game didn't really get a fair shake in this game, but ultimately, the package is, as it stands, a very good compilation of 25 plus years of Zelda. Actually, when was the 25th anniversary of Zelda? I think it was 2011. I don't remember, but basically, over 25 years of Zelda. I'm pretty sure it was, because that's when Skyward Sword came out. So now the gameplay. What do I think about the gameplay? Well, I pretty much already talked about the gameplay. You pick a warrior, you get thrown onto a map, you might have allies. Your goal is basically either to eliminate the enemy commander, to eliminate all enemy keeps, which are basically like bases where enemies spawn out of, You can take outposts, which are like little places where enemies spawn in lesser numbers. And once you kill the outpost captain, you can take them for your own. The same thing goes with keeps. Once you defeat the keep boss, after defeating so many minions in the keep, you get to take it for your own. And you know, sometimes during these battles, you'll get little mini missions that if you complete them, you get bonuses, which is really helpful. Defeating bosses is also something that happens. Bosses get thrown in from time to time. And ultimately, I think that there's a lot of stuff that can really happen, and definitely each character has a very distinct, different play style. So, for example, Link has his traditional spin attack. You know, he has his sword plant. You know, he has a couple of different moves. You know what I mean? I forget what it was called from Twilight Princess, but you know, he has all these different moves and whatnot that involve like crowd control. On the other hand, you have a character like Sheik, who is pretty good for like one-on-one, but has a special really good for crowd control. You have Impa, who uses the Bigoron's knife or the Giant's knife. I mean, I said giant. Is it giants? I think it's giants. Yeah. To really hack away at area enemies. You know, you have Zelda. You have all these different characters that are really good for certain different things. And really, after you beat the story, it's all about who you think fits your playstyle the most, and who you really like. And every time I play, I always find something out about a new character, and that makes them like me, or that makes me like them even more, and I really enjoy playing as them. So, for example, one day I was screwing around with Link, and I found out some cool stuff with Link, with the magic rod. And then the other day I was playing around with Sheik, and I found out some things with, you know, Sheik has a pretty good, easily chainable infinite combo that you can do, and a pretty good special to boot. On top of that, my friend recommended me something to do with Midna, and, you know, it just goes on from there. You know, once you begin, you know, each character has their own simple starting point that, you know, it's pretty easy to grasp, and they all have their different attributes, such as dodge, distance, and whatnot. But once you get used to it, you're pretty much golden, you know, you're onto it, you're onto something. So that was definitely fun. I had a lot of fun with that. You know, and just the sound, the graphics and presentation and sound are really just good. They're really, really well done. You can definitely hear, especially talking about the sound for a second here, if you're a Zelda fan, you'll definitely recognize a lot of the songs that are in this game. You can't miss them. They're just so iconic. And they've been remixed, of course. You know, they're not the same. They've been remixed either to be more rock-oriented, which I guess is Koei Tecmo's kind of thing. You know, they have heavy rock music in their Dynasty Warriors games. I don't know. Or they've just been remixed in general to be different, which is pretty cool, especially when you've played so many Zelda games. Like, the more Zelda games you've played, the more your appreciation and the more of your liking of this game will probably increase. Just based on the fact that they really were given a good tool set. They really were given a lot of direction with the Zelda universe, so they really implemented it, I feel, in a way that's pretty satisfying. Except for the aforementioned, you know, lack of other Zelda games, you know what I mean? Now, there is DLC coming out for this game, which may or may not add stuff. I don't know exactly what the DLC is. However, as it stands, you know, I can't critique, you know, the base game on the merits of the DLC, so that's why I have to kind of keep that in there, because I do know there is a Master Quest pack coming out, or I think it already came out, that might have added some Majora's Mask stuff, but that wouldn't be fair to the base game if I gave it credit for something it didn't do. And the graphics are pretty good. My only thing is that when playing as some characters, now I don't know why, but I was playing as Zelda yesterday, and for whatever reason, when I was doing a lot of like things, or a lot of attacks in groups of enemies, it would freeze the game. Like, it wouldn't freeze the game. It would lower the frame rate. I think the frame rate is like a steady 30 for the most part. It would lower it down to like 20 for a few seconds. And I don't know if that's just because Zelda's attacks are like gigantic arrows of golden light that immediately fall to the ground and explode. So that might be why. You know, it might just be a Zelda type of thing. I never really did see Zelda do it when I was not playing as her. So that might be Zelda. I'm not too sure. But I'll have to see. I don't know about that. But what is cool is that they are updating this game constantly. So it's not like this game is getting thrown away in any means. No, they are updating this game constantly. I should throw that out there. But I don't know. Just sometimes the frame rate might take a little bit of a dip. Not too much that I don't think it hinders gameplay. But just definitely you can totally notice it for some characters. Now, granted, I played as Link. I played as Lana. I played as a bunch of other people. And I really never noticed it. So it might just be the effects that some warriors have are pretty taxing, especially when the game has to render, 500 little enemies on the screen. It can be pretty bad sometimes. But ultimately, what would I give Hyrule Warriors? Now, as I've already said, the negatives are, they are missing a couple Zelda games. They do have a couple problems here or there. I think the story mode could have definitely included a few more games or been a bit longer or had a few more diverse maps. Given the 25 years of Zelda history, I do feel that they could have thrown in a little more for the story mode, the main campaign. There is one part where the main campaign branches, and it has 3 different storylines that all happen at the same time, and they all run side by side concurrently. But that was kind of it. After that, the 3 different timelines for each of the major Zelda games that were featured in this game, namely Skyward Sword, Ocarina, and Twilight Princess. And unfortunately, beyond that, they really didn't do it again. I was kind of hoping that later on down the line they would have another one for some other major Zelda games, but unfortunately those hopes were dashed. So the Legends mode, it has a good story. It definitely has a good featuring of characters that are really interesting. But at the cost, but just because of the fact that they didn't really include too many other Zelda games, the Legends mode was a little disappointing. Now, granted, it was still pretty long. It was like 10 hours, I think, just to beat, because each mission is about maybe 20-30 minutes when you're not like high level. So it was pretty long. Was it 10 hours? I don't remember. It was pretty long though. It was typically longer than most standard campaigns that I play. But what I did like was the adventure mode. Now, adventure mode, I didn't beat it. I did beat, maybe I want to say like 50% of it almost. I'm getting close to it. So definitely around, I will continue to keep playing it. I have a good gist of what it is, but I will continue to keep playing it. And there is a good diversity of missions in it. Yeah, my campaign of it was 9 hours. That is correct. But adventure mode is longer than Legends mode. You know what I mean? Legends mode is pretty short. It's probably the shortest mode in the game, and definitely it is very interesting. All the different things that they did put in this game, and I just feel that they could have had a little bit more, to do with other Zelda games, so they wouldn't have to reuse some things. Not that what they reuse is reused constantly. There are a lot of maps in this game. It's probably like 10 or so. Maybe up 15 or however many, and yeah, they definitely did a good job of implementing that. And one of the pluses, I will say, one of the major pluses is that if you're a longtime fan, you're definitely going to really enjoy yourself just because of the fact that they threw in so much to this game. And that's really just the best part about it, is not only, the nostalgia and the fact that the game is a lot of fun, but just that all the lore and everything seems to really fall into place. So what am I going to give Hyrule Warriors? I'm going to give Hyrule Warriors, I think, what is going to be one of the best scores I've ever given for a game. I think I'm going to give Hyrule Warriors a 98 out of 100. Besides those 2 little nuances, Hyrule Warriors is just really the pinnacle of what I want to see from a game. It is, especially, when I say that, I mean a game that has like a well-defined history, I think it would be, if Zelda was just an emerging franchise, they wouldn't have the great source material, it would be different. But because Zelda has been around for so long and has had so many great games, I think that this is really going to be, this is what I want to see from a lot of these franchises when they have crossovers like this. This is probably one of the better crossovers I've ever played in my life. And it's a lot of fun. And I really enjoyed it. And I will continue to play it, as the DLCs come out. As, I haven't even finished the base game, and, the DLCs are piling on, and it's just, at some points it seems that there's just too much good content is the problem. And, it's really great. When you're a Zelda fan and you play this game, I think you're going to like it. And hopefully they add some other characters and whatnot, and we will see about that. So thank you guys for today's verdict. I hope you guys go out and pick up this game. Definitely, out of all the games I've played, and out of all the recommendations and everything, I think that this game, you should really go out and pick it up the most, if you're a Zelda fan. And even if you're not a Zelda fan, just the action, just the fluidity of it is probably good enough that people who aren't too big on Zelda will be able to jump in and feel right at home. And definitely Zelda fans are going to love this game to death. So I enjoyed it. As I said before in my channel news, I really hope that the year continues along and along these lines, and we can keep going and have some good games come out later. So, thank you, everybody. I will see you next time for The Evil Within, and I hope you have a good day and enjoy.